Hey everybody. Today I want to tell you about leaky gut. I want to tell you about what it is, how it starts, how to test for it, and how to treat it. So we'll start with what on earth is leaky gut? You might have heard of it before, and you might know already that it is a whole body issue. It's not just in the gut. So what's going on here is we've got one type of cell in the intestines called the epithelial cell. And with those epithelial cells, they are held together by something called tight junctions. These look like a zipper, and they're called tight junctions because they are meant to be tight. When leaky gut happens, these tight junctions and epithelial cells create more space between them. So that creates some leaks in the system. Those leaks and that space is where undigested food can come through, any undigested food particles or excess hormones and toxins can leak through and can then more easily connect to the blood-brain barrier. So obviously, we don't want this to happen. This does affect more than just the gut alone. The gut, it can cause symptoms like bloating and digestive concerns, but because the leaks go through the blood-brain barrier, we can also experience brain symptoms too. So one of the things that people will notice if they have intestinal hyperpermeability is they feel brain fog or they don't feel as cognitively sharp as they used to. Anxiety or mood disruption can also be a sign of leaky gut. With the whole body, you might also notice changes in skin. So especially if you have chronic skin issues like acne that just won't go away, eczema, even rosacea, which is rosiness around the cheeks and even a little on the nose. There's also a correlation from the skin to the liver being part of the gut system, but the liver uses the skin as its exit route. So we can see symptoms in the brain, we can see symptoms in the skin, we can also see symptoms in hormones. Now, in some other videos, you'll see the estrobolome. The estrobolome is part of the microbiome where estrogen is related and estrogen is processed. Now, if there's leaky gut, if there's hyperpermeability in the intestines, this can cause issues with the menstrual cycle. This can cause issues with the way that we process estrogen, but we can also see issues with cortisol. And cortisol is our main stress hormone. When we see a lot of cortisol, when we see stress on top of a stress, for many days in a row or weeks in a row, think chronic stress now, this can affect the hormones, this can affect the immune system. And the immune system, 70% of it is housed in the gut or starts in the gut. And cortisol is known to decrease immune function. So we're seeing this confluence of hormones and immune system, and it all starts in the gut. Why does the gut get leaky, or why did the intestines get permeable in the first place? There are a few reasons. And today we'll talk about 5. The first reason is chronic stress. That cortisol that keeps on layering in, that can cause the permeability all by itself. Oh, I don't want to blame stress on everything on stress because it's not the end all be all, but it is a component. And that's one of the reasons in our program that we have this laid out as 5 pillars. The first pillar being gut health, then nutrition, hormones are the third and last physical piece, and stress reduction is the fourth. The fifth one is mentoring so that you don't have to do this by yourself. But all that to say, stress is a huge important part of health. Stress reduction so that we don't have too much cortisol leading to leaky gut. The second piece is food. Now, ultra-processed foods are known to cause hyperpermeability in the intestines and are known to cause leakiness. This can disrupt the gut bacteria and can also cause inflammation in the lining. Third piece, NSAIDs. This is non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drugs. We think about these non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drugs as gut disruptors when they're used a long time. So there are other medications that can disrupt the gut, but NSAIDs are definitely one of them. Fourth, environmental toxins. I've been touching on this a little bit in my program. We talk about it a lot, but there are things like phthalates, glyphosates, synthetic fragrances that are known to disrupt hormones, but they are also known to disrupt the gut. Usually, they disrupt the gut when you're consumed, and that can lead to more hormone disruption. Fifth, and probably most important, is dysbiosis. Now, dysbiosis is a fancy word for anything that is off balance in the microbiome. This can mean too much bacteria, too much fungus, yeast, too much virus. When there is dysbiosis, this can cause a stress response in the gut, and the body says something's going wrong, there's an imbalance here. And that imbalance alone can be caused by one of these first four things: the stress, food, medications, or environmental toxins. When dysbiosis happens, I always want to think about, why did this start in the first place? What's at the root cause here? So, ways that we can look, ways that we can test. There are three different tests that I'd like to highlight on where we can figure out what's causing this. So why are these intestinal permeabilities starting? One of them is called the lactulose test. Now, this is usually a breath test. Lactulose is a solution, so a liquid that humans can't digest, but bacteria can. So the way that we test for this is we do a specialized eating plan for 2 days to starve any bacteria. Then you take the lactulose solution, and because bacteria can digest it, and they haven't been eating on anything for 2 days, they go to town. So the bacteria go to brunch on this lactulose, and then you breathe into a tube, and you're measuring the off gas of this bacteria that are present. So that's one way to test for dysbiosis. The second way that we can look for dysbiosis and then subsequently look for leaky gut is through a test called zonulin. Now, zonulin is a scaffolding protein. So think about, in the gut, when you're having these leaks, these tight junctions are causing more space, and the body sends a signal saying, oh, I can help, I can patch those up. And so it creates more zonulin. So zonulin comes in as a scaffolding protein to patch up these leaks. What we can measure it in the stool, but we can also measure it in blood as well, is zonulin, to see if it's at higher levels than normal. And that's the body trying to help out, trying to patch up these leaks. And the third way that we can test is for a more comprehensive stool analysis. So this can look at good bacteria, bad bacteria, yeast, funguses, viruses. It can also look at inflammatory proteins. This takes a wider lens on what's going on in the gut and how can we rebalance. Usually, leaky gut does not just happen. Leaky gut happens because of something that triggered it. Dysbiosis is one of the main things that triggers it. And then what triggered the dysbiosis? That's when we get to do the digging after we get test results. So something that you might see in your own body, or some symptoms that people often miss, is you think, if I have leaky gut, I have to be having digestive symptoms. While digestive symptoms do happen, bloating, just feeling an upset stomach, that can be from the immune response in the gut lining. But we can also look for these brain symptoms like brain fog and low mood. That's because those inflammatory signals cross the blood-brain barrier. Also look for skin outbreaks, especially acne, eczema, rosacea. This is a systemic inflammation, so whole body inflammation reaching the skin. And lastly, hormone imbalances. If you have cycle issues or have too much estrogen or feel like you're chronically stressed out or always in that fight or flight zone, this can be related to the gut because of the systemic presentation of leaky gut. So last piece, how do we heal this? I like to use the 4 R's. Now, the 4 R's are remove, replace, re-inoculate, and repair. So we first start with remove. Remove any of those triggers that can be causing inflammation. Second, replace. We want the good bugs to come in, and we want to replace the foods or triggers that are causing this leaky gut in the first place. Reinoculate is where we get to replenish the good bacteria. These can be with things like probiotics, but I love using food as medicine. And then repair. We repair the gut lining. So those zonulins, those scaffolding proteins, they're doing such great work to help heal up those guts. So we help it along the way. We can use things like colostrum or zinc to help repair the gut lining. Well, one thing I want to leave you with are some common myths that you might hear about leaky gut or intestinal hyperpermeability. The first thing is you might hear leaky gut is not a real diagnosis. And while I agree it is not a scientific term, look in the literature under intestinal permeability and you will see tons of well-documented peer-reviewed research on intestinal permeability. So if ever you want to impress your friends, just say intestinal hypopermeability and you'll see more research there. The second piece, it's just a digestive issue. Leaky gut only happens in the gut. Not true. Leaky gut, while it may start in the gut, because all health begins in the gut and all disease begins in the gut, it is a systemic whole body condition. So thinking of it as purely a gut issue is really doing you a big disservice as a human. I want to look at the whole picture. And then lastly, an elimination diet will fix it. I did an elimination diet and it fixed everything. Elimination diets can be helpful. I hope that you know that. But when you think about the 4 R's, remove is the first R. There's 3 more R's to really heal the whole issue. So an elimination diet can be excellent for that first R of eliminating the triggers and what could be causing it. We also need to look at environment and make sure that there's not any other triggers coming in too. But then the real healing happens with the rest of repairing, reinoculating, rebalancing, making sure that the body is well healed so that this doesn't come back in the future. I hope this is helpful. If you think that you have leaky gut or you know somebody that has some gut issues that you want them to help, you want to help them get this figured out, in the comments below, I have put a link to my gut root cause quiz. It takes about 2 minutes and it will help to steer us on, is it in the gut? Is it related to stress? Is it related to hormones? So we can start to deduce what's going on in the gut and what's really at the root cause here so we can start to dig a little bit more. So it's in the comments. Please take it. Please share it with your friends. I hope this is helpful and I cannot wait to hear your quiz results.